There's a quote that gets thrown around in the gaming space every few months that always starts a massive fight. The games industry needs smaller games with worse graphics made by smaller teams. And every single time somebody says it, people collectively lose their minds. Because as a whole, we've basically spent the last 20 years convincing ourselves that bigger automatically means better. You gotta go for bigger worlds, you gotta have massive budgets, you need the biggest teams, because if you don't have the biggest map and you don't have the longest story and you don't have the most amount of content, your game will die. And yet when you actually look at some of the biggest success stories in gaming in most recent years, those games actually don't look anything like that. They look like Among Us. They look like Schedule 1. They look like Peak. Games that didn't cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make, games that weren't in development for 7 years, they're games that simply showed up, found an audience, and became huge. And now I think honestly we could kind of add Astrobot to that list. Because while the rest of the industry spent years chasing bigger and more expensive projects, PlayStation was quietly developing a smaller and more focused platformer that has now sold roughly 4.5 million copies, generating PlayStation hundreds of millions of dollars, won Game of the Year, and has become one of the most beloved PlayStation games in recent memory. But I don't think Astrobot is the story here. I think what we need to focus on is what Astrobot represents. And it's the fact that you can spend less time and less money developing a smaller and more focused game and find insane amounts of success. Because when a game like this can succeed at that level, it forces you to ask one big question. Why the fuck is everybody trying to make the next $500 million AAA game when the answer is right in front of you, dude? And the movie industry figured this out years ago, dude. Look at some of the biggest horror movies of all time. These things get made for like $10 million or less, sometimes much less, and they end up generating like $1 billion in profit. These are movies that were made for next to nothing and have become insane successes. They didn't have to gamble $500 million on it, hoping that they had a hit on their hands. They didn't have to worry about spending 10 years developing a project that might come out and be the worst project that anybody's ever experienced. They took a small team, they took a small budget, and they tried something. And yeah, it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And we've seen it happen over and over again. And that's the thing with these smaller projects. You can fail with these because not everything is on the line. When you're spending $30 million on a project and you're only spending 2 or 3 years on it, it's not the worst thing in the world when it fails. It sucks, and people of course will be unhappy, but for every Concord level failure, you could do 10 to 15 attempts at a smaller, more focused game that has the chance of becoming the next big hit. So the more I look at Astrobot and the success of that game, the more I think that PlayStation and other large development teams should be paying very close attention. Because this isn't just the story about a successful game. It's a story about a strategy that might make a lot more sense than what the industry has been doing for the last decade plus. When I think about how some of these games are made, and I think about the success of these smaller games, of course, the intention with these smaller games is that people don't make them having the thought in their head that this game is going to be a massive explosion of success and that I'm going to make the next big Among Us and that I'm going to make $1 billion and that 500,000 concurrent people are going to play my game because nobody else can do it like me. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean? They just have an idea. They just want to make it fun and they hope that somebody plays it. And if they're lucky, a streamer will pick it up and then it'll really take off. Like how Soda did with Among Us and really kicked that game off into a whole nother level and started the Among Us craze. It doesn't always happen, but it definitely happens. And the same thing right now is going on with Mecha Chameleon, which is a Japanese indie game developed by literally 2 people. And I'm pretty sure it wasn't developed in any large amount of time. And that game is a massive success right now, where some streamers played it, they saw the popularity, they saw the fun it generates, they saw the clips coming, and now everybody is playing it because not only is the game $5, which means for $5 you could have a great time with your friends, but it's easily accessible. The gameplay is simple. You're just basically doing hide and seek, except you could paint yourself so that you could blend in with the background better, like Prop Hunt. If you ever played Prop Hunt in a whole wide range of games like Gary's Mod and even Call of Duty had it in Fortnite and stuff like that, that's basically what it is, except you could paint yourself. Just a great concept. Simple, easy, fun. And it's made them millions upon millions of dollars and it cost them nothing to make. But for some reason, when the larger studios see something like this and they see this kind of success, they don't understand how it works. They look at it and they go, okay, We get what's going on here. We see what people are enjoying. How do we take this one concept and turn it into a $100 million project that's gonna take us 5 years? So by the time we finish the game, this trend is long gone and nobody gives a fuck about this anymore. So now we're dated and old, and then people don't buy our game and we're sitting there like, oh, what's going on here? I guess people, like, you guys are dumb. We made the exact game that you guys want, so what's the problem? Well, it took you too long. You couldn't jump on the hype, and nobody cares anymore. PlayStation would kill to have a game like Schedule 1, a game that they could just throw out there and generate them millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for nothing. They input nothing and they get that game. That would be huge for them, but they don't understand that. They don't understand the risk of, let me put in a few $1,000,000 and hopefully come out with $100 million. It doesn't make sense to them. All they see is, if we're not spending at least 100 million or more, well, then there's no way we'll make money, because it's not what people want. But it's very clear that if you've been paying attention, that it is what people want. And yes, these games aren't forever games, which is also something that big developers don't understand, that every game needs to be this live service, daily update, weekly update game, because if you don't have that, people will stop playing. And if they stop playing, it's the end of the world. But it's not. And nobody cares. Some of these games are not designed for that, especially when they're cheap. A $10 game, a $5 game, if you get a few hours of entertainment out of it, that's worth it. You spend more on lunch, and that's done in 10 minutes. And you spend more when you go see a movie, by a whole lot, and that's done in 2 hours, an hour and a half. So why not buy a game like Mecha Chameleon for $5? You play it for 4 hours total? Great, you had a good time. What's the problem there? But they don't get that. I think there's another issue that happens with large-scale developers and large-scale publishers where they seem to have an issue reusing assets. And I think a lot of people also have an issue with seeing reused assets where they think like, they're cheaping out, they didn't make it good enough. It's the same thing that happened with God of War and God of War Ragnarok, the same like boat pushing animation. People were like, how could they do that, man? This game costs so much money, and they reused an animation as if like Kratos is supposed to push the boat in a different way. Like, who gives a shit? But, you know, of course, people will cling on to that and say something fucking stupid, which is also probably why at the same time, PlayStation and like Xbox and people, all these different studios and publishers, they don't want to cheap out and do something like that because they know that there's fucking morons out there that'll screenshot a brute's face and be like, Halo sucks. You guys are fucking garbage. Worst animation ever. So they don't want to do that. They have to be seen as like this tentpole kind of, we only do the best of the best, because anything less is not us. We can't represent that, but it's a missed opportunity. For example, right now, Astrobot is a success. Everybody loves Astrobot. You talk to anybody, they're like, incredible game, best game, a holy grail of platformers. I loved it. I don't think it's the best platformer ever, but I do think it was an excellent game, but I also don't really think it should have won Game of the Year, but whatever. The point being, if they took Astrobot, you take all of those different bots that look like all the characters from all your favorite games, take all those people, take Astrobot, take all the assets, put some levels of driving around there, make Astro Kart, make it a small game, reuse all the assets from the levels so you don't really have to design anything new other than the carts and other than the tracks. Then don't even design a lot of tracks, design like 10, and then make a custom track generator where users can generate their own tracks within the game and share them within the game. That's all you gotta do. Now you have Astro Kart that is 95% user-generated content. You have a great time. Everybody's having a great time. You sell that for 30, 40 bucks. You got a winner on your hands. Now you take those exact same assets, you take all those same bots, you put them in a party game that has of different variations of basically all these small friend swap games that you love, Astro Peak, Astro Repo, and you call it Astro Party. You make it like Mario Party, except you make it a little bit more dynamic, different game modes. You're reusing all the assets you already have. You got another winner on your hand. Use Astrobot to make these smaller games, to make these smaller experiences. Why not? Take that risk. Why not make a Luigi's Mansion type game, a horror game with Astro? You have that level that looks creepy and spooky Halloween style. Just make something a little bit more focused, a little bit more contained, a little bit smaller experience, charge less for it, 20 bucks. There's your Astro horror game. It's all right there for you. Just reuse those assets. Just make a smaller game. Take a smaller risk for the potential of something huge. People will eat up that game. I would play it in a heartbeat, dude, in a heartbeat. But they don't see that. They think, no, if we're not spending $180 million on the next Astrobot to make $1 billion, then we're failures. But it's not what people want. Sometimes you want it. Like, I can't wait for Intergalactic. I think Intergalactic's gonna be probably the best game ever made, potentially, very likely. Top 3, probably. But at the same time, do I want a fun little kart racer Astrobot game? Yep. Do I want a fun little party Astrobot game? Yep. Take a small risk. They made Paranormal Activity for like $10,000 and it made them like $1 billion. Take a small risk, make smaller games, hit us with smaller games faster, and everybody will be happy. And then you can also take more time to make those huge tentpoles because people feel like they're getting something in the meantime. They're not just waiting around forever. Make smaller games, take smaller risks, take more risks, everybody's happy.